I've got some exciting news to share. Did you know that you can have your hemp products tested in Maryland? I just sent over a new CBD product that I want to start using to Atlantic Test Labs. Testing is simple, safe, and accurate with Atlantic Test Labs. To send in your CBD product, visit atlantictestlabs.com and use the code MJTalks10 for 10% off of your order. When I get my test results back, I'll share them on my social media. Do you suffer from chronic pain or illness? Do you feel like you've tried everything and still haven't found relief? If this sounds like you, James Highland, a holistic lifestyle coach, can help. He works with people who've been suffering for decades or who have been newly diagnosed so that they can reach their optimal wellness. And as a client of James for the past year, I can personally attest to the transformational work that he is doing to empower people to be their own healers. And I've worked with him on everything from switching my diet from keto to more plant-based to even working on my rage issues that I've shared on a previous podcast. To take back your health, you can email James at Spark Vision Now. Herbology of Maryland, delivering to patients in Carroll County, Montgomery County, and surrounding areas. Save 10% off your first delivery when you order today, and there's a minimum of a $40 order. Call Westminster at 443-487-4552 or Gaithersburg at 240-654-0911 for more information. And you can stop by their dispensaries located at 700 Corporate Center Court in Westminster, Maryland, or their Gaithersburg location at 106 North Frederick Avenue off of Route 355. And visit myherbology.com for more details. Herbology, dream in green. And finally, Pure Life Wellness. They're my home town dispensary. You'll catch me there every Tuesday for Industry Day, where you will get 25% off your order if you are in the restaurant, hospitality, or cannabis industry. I will see you at 35 East Cross Street, and you can learn more about Pure Life Wellness at purelifebaltimore.com. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Conversations with Maryjane. Today I am super excited to have my good friend Phil Ash and the creator of the High Five Initiative here with me today. Hi Phil.
Hi.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
So let's go ahead and get started. What is the High Five Initiative? Because nobody really knows about this in Maryland yet.
Yeah, that's true. The High Five Initiative is a nonprofit that I'm the executive director of. My partner is the founder. We're co-founders of this nonprofit. And it basically is an environmental nonprofit. So we do things like cleanup initiatives and other things, basically just to talk about waste and change people's mind about waste and show them sustainable practices and basically figure out sustainable practices and offer solutions for people. How that actually transfers into the cannabis side comes into the recycling initiative that we started. And that's how that works.
Yeah. So what is the recycling initiative?
Yeah. Okay. So we had to come up with a program. We actually found a problem.
Yeah.
So we're our nonprofit. Every board member that we have is a patient as well, a medical cannabis patient, and that means we're also consumers of whatever we have to go through this particular process and pick out the flower in this way and the yada yada yada. And as a consumer, you go there to buy one thing. So you go there to buy cannabis, but you end up, you can look at the equation. You go there, you buy cannabis, but you come back, you have cannabis in a container.
Yep.
But you don't want that container. So for you, the consumer, now that's waste, and you have a responsibility to do something with it. So for us, generally, that's, and this isn't this is anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's specific. In this particular industry, most of the flour was using this one type of container. So we had
And what type of container is that?
It's called a pop top container, but it's a polypropylene, just rigid container.
So it's number 5, right?
It is a number 5.
Single-use plastic.
Correct. It's a single-use plastic. So anytime you're buying something that's contained in something, and you're not going to use that, they call that a single-use plastic. So it's just the packaging that goes around whatever it is. And we had this one question, which was, when you get it, you get these labels on it. So based on the MMC regulations, you have to have a label that tells you some stuff about the product, and if it's bad, you know what to do, if it's, whatever. And then there's a label that's specific to the patient, so that you have some ownership of that, and it's traceability. But I didn't know, and we didn't know, when we went to go recycle it, we were going to put it in our blue bin, which is called the single stream. And we wanted to know if we had to take the label off to recycle it properly. Because we knew a lot of stuff about, we were aware of a lot of different things about, issues with recycling and whether or not it was actually being functionally done. But the question was so simple. It was, if I want to recycle, because that's my why in this scenario, I don't want that particular piece of plastic. I want to put that and make sure it doesn't go anywhere that I know it's going to go. How do I recycle it? And, it ended up that we called our local county recycling and spoke to them, and they said that they don't do the recycling. They basically batch it up, and then it gets shipped to one of 2 different recycling sorting centers in the state. And this is how this single stream system works. So it goes in from every county. It goes into these 2 main sorting centers, and they have lots and lots of different equipment and machines that actually break these things out and are supposed to sort them. But so we talked to the people in Cecil County, where we live, and they told us theirs goes to Baltimore County. So it either goes to Baltimore County or Montgomery County.
Where does it go after Baltimore and Montgomery County? So
they do the source or the sorting. They're supposed to. It's called a material recovery facility, and they're supposed to break it down. And then forever since almost recycling actually started. The parts of recycling, it's like a closed loop system. So the first part of recycling is to actually collect and sort the materials, and that's the part that we're talking about here. Then there's a part where they take those collected and sorted materials and they split it off into manufacturers that specialize in breaking that down and reintroducing it into a new product. That's the second part of that loop. And then the third part is when a consumer actually goes and buys that new product. This is the closed loop, those 3 things on the recycling symbol. So we were just trying to figure out that first section. How do you do the first section so that I can make sure that I'm doing my part to continue the loop? Because that's real big for us. This is zero waste. And what we found out was, Cecil County told us to call, we ended up getting in touch with the state and talking to a bunch of people at that all these different recycling facilities, and I showed them what I had. And I said, these are the different types of containers that I get. I know I can't recycle this. It's mylar foil, blah, 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 blah. And I said, so we narrowed it down to just the name of it, which is a rigid number 5 polypropylene container.
Which is most of the cannabis containers. Correct. In the state of Maryland.
It's in the country.
In the country.
Probably more than that, but I'm not that world traveled. But
yeah.
It is the most popular one, and it's because of this one particular part of the material that makes it do this popping thing.
Yep.
That's it. And it doesn't have a lot of surface energy. Long story short, they told us that they didn't actually recycle these things. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, basically, there was a parameter change. And I said, okay. So the idea is, remember, there's a section where they sort it, and then it goes to manufacturers. So for a really long time, China is the one that had the manufacturing facilities.
Yeah, everything. I mean, we found out, right, that more than 50% of our recycling got sold to China, right?
It's way more than that.
Wow.
Yeah, as far as Maryland is concerned, our number one export is our waste. In the United States, our number one export is our waste.
And the issue is like China has stopped taking.
Correct.
Right? Because they have, in essence, destroyed their country.
That's exactly right.
By their manufacturing practices.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened. There was a first step, which I forget what it was called, green sword or green something.
Yeah.
So when they sort all these things out and they make this end material, it's called a post-secondary material. There's a specific parameter set. Now we're talking about engineering parameters and specifications of how clean this can be. So when you break down plastics, if you get another plastic in it, it reduces the ability of that plastic to be recycled into something new. So that's the contamination point. So the single stream where we put everything in it, no matter what kind of plastic, this plastic, that plastic, the other plastic, it wasn't able, their sorting facility wasn't able to break that out enough. So the first time they dropped it, and there was originally, like a 10% contamination rate, and that was perfectly fine. Everybody in the state could put that on a barge and ship that, and nobody would see it. Nobody would see your waste, or what we consider waste. But then they would go to the next part, and in 2013 there was a green something, I forget the name of the actual thing for China, and they ended up lowering the parameter. But we were still, even in Maryland, we were still able to ship and meet that specific parameter. In 2017, they dropped it so low that no one in the United States could actually do that, except for one, Berkeley in California has a great rate. But they basically, in doing that, it made all of the infrastructure for recycling sorting facilities unable to produce a product that could be recycled. So when I talked to them about that at length, our question was, how do we help? Because that just seems so stupid.
So just to recap, there was, because of the chain of events that have happened, there was no way for however many hundreds of thousands of these, and I'm only going to talk cannabis because this is the whole, everything that we do, but let's just talk for the cannabis containers. There's no place for them to go except landfills. Correct. In the ocean.
Right. So when this started to happen here, you have to, I try to put myself in their position. You're trying to do this, but you can't sell it. So you're just stacking it. Yeah. What do you eventually, and it's a huge amount. I mean, every person throws away about 4 pounds of plastic a day. So if you could just do the numbers, it's a large volume. That's a lot. Yeah, I mean,
4 pounds is huge.
Yeah, you just do the math and just see it. It's just a sick amount. And you're like, okay, well, these guys aren't able to do anything with it. They still have to answer to somebody, which is, the constituents. But they don't want to do it any whatever way. So they have to do something with it. And they had to make this really hard choice to put it in a landfill. But what ends up happening is you get this thing called leakage. Yeah. And the leakage is when plastics or any of these other things actually fall away and end up in the waterways. Yeah. And that's how you end up with these Great Barrier Reefs of plastic and things like that. That's where these things.
I think this is a great statistic that they have estimated that there's more plastic in the ocean than there are stars in the Milky Way. That's and if you true. Know how many stars are in the Milky Way, it's 100 million. How do you say it? 100,000 million stars. Yeah, 100,000 million stars.
That seems like a lot. I don't even know how to. Yeah,
I don't know how many
these numbers that you can't even really fathom as a human. Yeah. So you try to break them down into like understandable measurements that everybody can actually understand. So when we talk about, it's a good point because I didn't know if that was a problem. We're just one couple and we're like working on trying to figure out if we're, we had a set of them, like a stack, because we didn't know what to do with them. But
of containers?
Of containers, just like in a bin or something. Yeah. Trying to figure out what we were going to do with it. I mean, we do recycled and upcycled art all the time. So, Bree used a bunch of things for a costume, and we tried to do, but you eventually run out of these small solutions. Yeah. And you go, okay. So we ended up doing some math with the MMCC because we started to notice that nobody was recycling. Yeah. And I just thought that was strange. Why would this thing, this industry, it was brand new and all about an alternative method of thinking, an alternative method of wellness, and a plant, no doubt, have this. It just seemed...
well, it's like counter what the community is about. Like, it's a plant, so this plant grows on the earth, and you should keep the earth,
Right. It didn't, if we knew that it didn't seem aligned, it was certainly not aligned for us, this particular issue. and it didn't seem aligned for anybody in the
Yeah.
in the patient group. So as we walk through it and move forward, we ended up doing some math with the MMCC, and that was the first time. It wasn't the first time, but we ended up talking to the MMCC and some people there and asking, what do you think about this? Is there any issues with recycling? We've talked to some dispensaries off the cuff just to sort of feel it out, and they said, they had questions about the MMC's compliance rules, and they had all these different, just real quick reasons why they couldn't do this.
Mm-hmm.
And it was obvious they didn't know the same things that we didn't know. We knew a little bit more than they did as far as, stuff going into the oceans and things like that. They were focused on their startup businesses.
Yeah, of course.
But we ended up talking to the MMCC and we asked for transactional math or transactional data. Because that was one of the things. Is this a big enough problem to really warrant what I think it's going to have to take to fix it?
What transactional information were you looking for? Like to see how many containers in a year are produced?
Yeah, I wanted to get really
some of those
specific.
Numbers?
So they ended up not being able to give us the actual transactional data, but we did. They were confident in the numbers that we were working with anyway. So they actually did a report that tells you how much cannabis was sold, flower versus concentrates and stuff like that. They were able to separate it out. So we chose, we're only talking about this particular container itself is only for flower normally.
Yep.
So we can sort of get a guesstimate. And then we work back and forth trying to verify these are the numbers. Are these correct? Can we break it down this way? What are the averages of the amounts? Because there's different types of weights for these specific containers, and each one weighs a little bit different, and each one's made out of something different. So you got to go through all this math to find out how much it is potentially. What is the potential amount of plastic that we're talking about? How big is this problem? So we used the first year, and it turns out that there's somewhere around, we did the math, it's quick math, but it's about 84,000 pounds generated in the first year.
So just from eighth purchases, right? So
Sure.
an eighth container, that's the container we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
84,000 pounds of plastic,
Yes.
non-recyclable, like you can't.
Definitely not being recyclable, even on the way that you think it would be recyclable. Even
Yeah.
if you tried to be recyclable, it wouldn't do it.
I mean, that's a staggering number.
Yeah, it turns out, you say that number, 84,000 pounds, seems like a lot. You could switch it over, but it's like 3.125 million pop tops.
Okay, that number's huge too.
Which is a huge number. If you can move it to a different number, like if you just want to know how much mass that is, we switched it over to it is half the mass of the Space Shuttle Endeavour, which, you just can't make it make sense.
No.
There's so many elephants worth, or whatever. It just doesn't really calculate in your head, but it's just a massive number just from this particular industry who is just misaligned.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the patient, that we talk to, so that's part of the process of solving a problem is, defining it.
Yeah.
And that's where we started to go through the definition of, is this a problem? How big of a problem is this? Just to really get a grasp of it. And where is the problem? Really find the root cause. Don't just sit there and say, all right, this is a problem. I want to recycle, but nobody's allowing me to recycle. Well, if I throw it in the bin, is that right? So you check it. Is it right?
No.
No, it's not right.
Not.
Now what are you going to do? What are your options now? So, you try to find, first you got to really, when you're solving a problem or trying to figure out what an optional solution is for that problem, we just wanted to solve it for ourselves at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then we talked to dispensaries who also needed it to be solved. And then we talked to patients who were just like, this is ridiculous. And we're environmentalists at the beginning of this. So this was not aligned with us.
Yeah.
We were going to figure out a way to recycle no matter what. But it seemed as if it wasn't just it would, once we got to the idea that there was, in the root cause, which was there's a break in this particular contamination issue. And how do you fix that? And who else has fixed that? To look for these optional solutions, you find out that, Berkeley, you have to become an expert in it.
When you say a contamination issue, just for people who don't know, so what that means is that the recycling, so we just are tossing it in bins, and because it is either not clean or stuff's in there that shouldn't be in there, that kind of, after a certain rate, you can't recycle that stuff. So you could have huge dumpsters that have enough of a contamination rate that nothing in it gets to get recycled.
Yeah, there's an allowable contamination rate. So there's a parameter. I mean, when you're doing this and you're creating a system that's actually going to manufacture, you got to take worst case scenario.
Yeah.
So there's an allowable contamination rate. What's happening is you're throwing plastics into the same bin as other plastics, and those plastics, when you break them down, their molecular interactions, when you get all the way down to it, actually limit their ability to be functional in a raw material on the next stage. So if you put polyethylene, PETE, number one, in with polypropylene, even just the smallest amount, it ruins the entire batch. It's totally unfunctional, and nobody can make anything out of it. So it's dead. It's not recyclable material. So you have to come up with a better way to do that.
So we have the problem. We had 84,000 pounds.
To make it real.
Short little endeavor.
Oh, sorry, man. Yeah, to make it real.
Yeah, lean in.
To find out if it was real.
So how did you solve it? What did you and Bree do? Or how are you solving it?
Yeah, I think
nobody knows about this yet.
Right. So it's a big, big problem. That's what we got.
Mm-hmm. And it's been forever. I think the first time I realized that recycling was kind of a sham was when I watched something with Trevor Noah, who does like a late night show, and he really dug into that. And I think American citizens have been the wolves pulled over their eyes or whatever it is. For all this time you thought you were recycling, we literally just destroyed another country with our trash.
Oh, well, that's 100% true.
Right? And so nobody has known. Like, it's just out of our sight, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of theories to that, but it is, recycling itself is just a simple thought, where we talked about it, where there's just these three parts to what a closed loop system is.
Yep.
When it was taken over by advertisers and marketing people and changed into an ownership or a fault so that they could move somebody. There's a classic ad where they changed. There's an advertising play where they changed the discourse. Instead of it being, we used to have milkman models where you would actually, and the owner of that plastic or that glass container in that case made the glass container so that it could be easier for them to reuse.
Yep.
And then somewhere along the line, we did this thing where we went single-use everything.
Yeah. Well, it's convenience, right?
Convenience, yeah, sure.
All of
we
those
needed
things.
to solve somebody else's problem, and we made it convenient. But then there was an advertisement, and I think it's the 70s or something, where they did this fake crying Indian, and they called people litter bugs. It was just this weird thing. So they changed the ownership of the excess waste or the excess material that you weren't interested in purchasing from a basic consumer equation to your problem now.
Yeah.
So now it's no longer the businesses, and there's a discourse change there, and that caused it grows and grows and grows and grows. But yeah, there's a real big problem with it being a sham. There's a real big problem with it, and the recycling process is not a sham.
Yeah.
The sham is when we don't talk about where there's mistakes. I mean, most people don't know, and certainly would expect that if you take a piece of plastic or a piece of something that says it's recyclable and throw it in a single, the thing that you're supposed to use, that you're doing the thing that you're supposed to do.
Devastated when I found out.
Right.
I mean, our apartment building just did away with recycling. They don't even pretend to do it anymore because it was just a drain on their resources.
It's expensive
to have
to know that you're doing all these extra things and somebody is not allowing that to actually happen is very, very, you lose trust with the system. It's an issue with the system.
Yeah.
But it's a stupid problem. The problem is really only that you contaminated it.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. We first had to go find what the actual root cause of this issue was.
So root cause is the contamination.
Yeah, when you're defining a problem,
Okay.
you need to get past your assumptions and get to the real.
That's true.
So that you can start with a why.
Okay.
So what we talk about, is to really get to that. If you go and you Google problem solving or something like that, they will talk about defining the problem, because that is you need to make that as clear as you possibly can when you're getting to wanting to solve something. And you need to get to the root cause. And there's a lot of different tools for that. I use a thing called the 5 whys, and that's just because of my experience in life. But you basically, like a child, keep asking why, until you can find the one thing where you can actually make a change. Why did that happen? Why did that happen? Why did that happen? Why did that happen? And there's somewhere in there where you get to make a change. But I don't know where that is. It just depends. So you find that, and then you can get to this real clear statement of the problem. In our particular case, the problem was super simple. Using the prescribed method of recycling doesn't work. Why? It's simply because it got contaminated. So what do? I didn't know what to do.
Okay. So what did you do once you found out what you were going to do?
Well, that was the question, right? So at this point, there's a couple of steps in problem solving. The second one is to lay out as many solutions to this problem that you've defined here as you possibly can. And we asked, don't be, I very much want to ask as many people as possible, because it's really, really common that you find that there's an existing solution that you just didn't know about. So then when you go back and you find the root cause again, the real root cause is that you weren't aware of it, and maybe other people are unaware of it. So now you've changed the definition of your problem so you can act a little bit differently.
Yeah, problem is awareness.
Right. So in this case scenario, what were the different alternative solutions? And we talked to I didn't know. I wasn't an expert. I didn't have the background in recycling. I knew operations and project management and stuff like that, but certainly didn't know the depth of this. And it was such a large problem. So I asked the state,
And what answer did you get?
Yeah. Well, they told us to start a nonprofit.
Okay.
I said, we asked them. I said, what do we do to help you? And they said, you set up collection centers. You create a dual stream system.
Okay.
We can't do that. And I said, that's silly. And they said, I said, how do we help? And they said, you have to do that. You set up a nonprofit and do it. I said, I don't know how to set up a nonprofit and do it. So that was that was one solution. Well, I didn't like that solution so much, because there's a lot of different, that seemed hard. And I was like, maybe there's an easier one. Like somebody else has got to already be doing that.
You just, in the end, like how this all started is you just wanted to be able to recycle.
Simple.
In a word, like literally recycle your cannabis containers.
Yeah,
and that's how this all started.
Once we found out we couldn't lie to ourselves and say that this was going to happen if we.
Well, I think that's why you going nonprofit. You say like that's a lot of work, because you literally just wanted to recycle for you at this point.
It seemed like an extreme solution to such what we felt was a very simple problem.
Yeah.
And it turns out that that was the only path after.
They were right.
It really was. If we had just taken that at face value, it would have been faster. But we checked everything. We checked other companies that specialize in it. We checked other companies that specialize in recycling polypropylene even. Great companies doing great work, and learned so much. We talked to different nonprofits and tried to understand their perspective, the zero waste aspect of it. Closed loop, just a ton of different methods to try and answer this one simple question. And it turns out this was the most straightforward, because there is a stigma. Yeah. The people that were already doing this would not allow it to happen for this particular industry. For some reason, there's just this weird stigma about it.
Stigma about recycling?
Stigma about recycling cannabis tainted
Oh,
things.
I see what you're saying.
And they think
Yeah.
it's no, the recycling is fine. If you talk about recycling to them, about rigid number font,
The MMCC?
anyone in the recycling zone, if you talk to them about plastic recycling, it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
If you talk to them about, if you even bring up the word cannabis or something like that, they get nervous. But really, it's not.
I mean, do you think it's because they think people are going in and scraping out what little dust is left on the inside of an eighth container? Is that what the issue is? Because I guess if you took 84,000 pounds of waste, you may have an ounce of cannabis.
So that's a concern. That theory is a concern, and we found that that was a question. Why do people have these thoughts, and why is this so hard? And actually, in that particular theory seems to be reserved only for the people inside of the cannabis industry.
Yeah.
The people outside of the cannabis industry do not care. Recyclers specialize in cleaning that stuff out.
Yeah.
So they want to know, it's part of the secondary processing, and they want to know how do they get it out of there, so that they can use it as a material. They don't make any money off of that. The MMCC has been extremely supportive.
Yeah.
All the way through, as far as any sustainable practices that we talk to them about, as far as this particular recycling. I mean, we were talking to them just a few days ago to help people, help dispensaries get over their fears of compliance regulations. But yeah, what ends up happening is those people had stigma issues, and it wasn't their stigma issues. It was written into the discourse of the insurance. So that's where it was. It wasn't their problem. They didn't care. They knew that they were going to make it clean. They didn't care. All this other stuff. It was written into the insurance policy.
Of the dispensaries?
No. Of the recyclers and the different people like that.
Oh. Got it. So anybody
So there was a
who you would
stigma in a separate industry for this particular type of industry when it just didn't need to be there.
Yeah.
So we had to literally find people that could do it and get past that stigma. And really recognize that didn't make any sense.
That is like par for the course for any pioneer in this industry.
Sure.
You are going to end up having to fight stigma, find other ways. I mean, just to throw the first event we ever did, right? Like 300 phone calls and to find. And so I can appreciate like how hard that work is to find someone who just is willing to look past it enough to listen.
Well, not only that, but like we found that when we work with post-secondary processors that actually take our material once we sort it and break it down and then ship it to them. They specialize in post-secondary material, post-consumer material. So they have all the equipment that like cleans it up and does this, that, and the other and pushes it through to the manufacturer. They have to find out, you get so technical with it because you have to find out the density and the different types of polypropylene within the polypropylene. So then they have to send that to different labs to evaluate it. They got shut down from their labs that they've been. So you have a lot of, even not the first conversation, if that person says it's perfectly okay, if they take that plastic and send it to a lab to get it evaluated, but then they open the box and the box is full of cannabis essential oils, basically, terpenes, they shut that box down and ship it right back. And so they have to now be willing to try and overcome that stigma as well. Yeah. So there's a lot of it. It's throughout. So it's a big, every day it's an additional problem to overcome just to get this one thing to happen, which is I don't want to put my trash that I didn't want in the first place in the landfill. Yeah. Why is that so hard? So it becomes a really complicated problem, but it's if you go back every time you run into one of these obstacles, back to that original definition of your problem, and you've created that as your why, then the thought process and the decision making is simple. Yeah. Well, that's hard. What do you got to do? You got to get up and do another one. It's really that simple. So we generate as many in the second process, or the second step. You generate as many solutions as you can, and you evaluate them. You know, in that first definition, you're going to create those parameters or those things that make it true for success. So any kind of minimal thing, you know, I'm going to read 20 pages, whatever it is, you can measure something against that.
Yeah.
And the second one is, you know, that next step, and then, you know, you go on and you just take the next one.
So you've identified the problem. You've put out a ton of solutions.
Correct. And then you
vetted them through.
Yeah.
Now you have one that seems viable.
Correct.
So today, as it stands in Maryland,
yes,
with the High Five Initiative, what are you guys doing to help with the containers staying out of the landfill?
So we created a recycling program that basically facilitates that first step.
Okay.
So where that break in that first step of recycling was, you know, that's what they've asked us to do, basically put a Band-Aid on that particular step. So we work with different dispensaries, different industries actually, but in this particular case, dispensaries and doctors' offices and things like that. And we, you know, if they're open-minded enough to create a pathway for their patients who also are like us and want to not put that stuff in the landfills, and they, you know, to be these collection centers. So we work with different dispensaries to create participating collection centers. Then the dispensary collects the material, you know, just as a
we just bring it in, drop it when we go to purchase, right?
Yeah, for sure. You just need a unit, a spot for the people to actually do it.
Yeah.
So, and then we facilitate, you know, the transport, and then the secondary processing, and basically walk it to the correct, you know, around the problem and to the correct processors that can actually make it finish the recycling. So we're just trying to facilitate that, and for as many people as possible.
Yeah.
With as minimal, you know, we want to make it as easy and simple, because it shouldn't be hard to do that.
No.
You can do that in a lot of other scenarios. It should not be hard to do that.
Yeah. So we can, and it's not going to China. Like, this stuff is really getting recycled.
No, it stays all within the United States. It's everything. Yeah, it doesn't go to China. It gets made into a bunch of different things, but
yeah,
it's certainly it's 100%. Everything that we capture is kept out of the landfill.
That is completely awesome. And I think what's really cool, and I didn't start this episode with this, is when I met you, we met at Anne Arundel Community College taking the entrepreneurship in cannabis class.
Yes.
And in that class, our final assignment was either to have a business plan,
right,
or to talk about his business or whatever.
Yeah.
And so this is actually your second
it is
kind of business and that's how I met you, is kind of problem solving in that class. So what was your first business that you started in the cannabis industry?
So we started Ash Enterprises. I left from a manufacturing industry, and I was trying to get into the cannabis industry. And we ended up, doing some, whatever. We ended up getting to this particular class. And they wanted us to start a business. It was like, how do you start a business? Now I've had businesses in the past and stuff like that. So I had an idea of how to be an entrepreneur. And that particular professor was really, really promoting picks and shovels.
Yep, we just did a whole show on that.
Yeah.
Picks and shovels.
So yeah, he's super into, if everybody's throwing money at that center thing, you make money off the side game. But you probably remember you're supposed to do a final project or something. And I have a real inability to just do things for the motivation of profit. It doesn't fit well with my value system. It doesn't do anything like that. So I ended up, when we created that business, it was set up where the entire point of it was to have money rerouted to local nonprofits.
Yep.
And the goal of that it wasn't even like, can you set up a business or anything? It was more like, can you set up a business that aligns with your particular value sets that also does something bigger than make profit?
Yeah.
It was more like we wanted to set up a B corporation. So that's what we ended up doing, setting up one of those. So
you guys, that industry or that business actually supported Simple Sacrifice, our homeless organization.
Yeah,
through that
you
as
guys.
well.
Yeah,
Yep.
Simple Sacrifice was the first nonprofit that we were able
Yep.
to support with those funds. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and it was sort of strange, and it goes. We talk about this a lot. That it goes. It keeps coming to this point of what we do, and this particular nonprofit is so near and dear to us because it really is stuff that we do and what we believe.
Yeah.
But on that, we were able to give you funds from a sustainable packaging project that we did, right?
Yeah.
Which was, it's very similar to this. It's just as a sustainable practice that we just can't, get around it as a core value for us. It's something that we always try to do as a unit, as a nonprofit, as whatever. But in this case, that's what it was about. Setting up that business was about figuring out a way to move money from.
I mean, I'll tell you what you want to say.
I will tell you, yeah.
He would like to fuck capitalism, and that's why you.
So they had
you did.
That's funny. So they had, and the final project, and the teacher was sort of, I love that guy, and he knew that it was coming. But in the final project,
I aced the class.
You did ace the class, and this was your project in that class. The podcast was yours. But they asked you to start a business and tell you your business plan and stuff like that. And I don't recall exactly what I said, but they had like dispensary owners and people that were ready to hire people.
Yeah.
So everybody's all nervous and shit. And and he saved me for last because he knew that I would
deliver.
He knew that he was betting on me for some reason. So they ended up, I went and, I gave a speech or something, and it was basically about, look, I don't care about any one of this, any number of profit things. My whole goal is to fuck with capitalism. And like the people that were there,
crickets.
They were just like, aren't you supposed to like want to get a job at my dispensary? And I was like, no, I want to make your dispensary. What we found within that, when we're doing all that, what I really understood was there was a complete misalignment of, maybe not misalignment, but there was, all these companies were in their startup business phase, and they're all crazy doing all types of things, and they think they're trying to do what they need to do to make money because that's what their primary goal is when you start. You got to make funds so that you can keep yourself sustainable.
Yeah.
And I get it. I'm familiar with that. But one of the things that gets lost in that is who you serve. What are you doing it for? What's your mission? What's your why? And it became real clear that the patients were not necessarily left behind, but they weren't the primary focus.
Yeah.
And so that's what, one of the things that I didn't much align necessarily with that. What we started that business for, on top of being able to move that money, was to really align as many of those dispensaries or businesses with the culture.
Yeah.
In different ways. Whether it be going to, I remember we went to one dispensary and they had asked us, what do you do? What do you think? What do you think? And we talked to them about, it was very sterile. And it didn't have any, it wasn't warm feeling and this, that, and the other. So we talked about that and like changed that up. And that, it's one of those things, like, who do you serve? And to remind, because that's when we were, entrepreneurs or something like that. One of the major factors of being an entrepreneur, and one of the trickiest parts of being an entrepreneur, is remembering why you do what you do.
Yeah.
And if you walk away from that, it's really easy to get stuck in that profit zone and want to be, I'm making money, and that's very exciting and a nice feedback loop. But it's not it shouldn't be the whole thing. So we always thought about making a larger piece, and that's where the B Corporation comes in.
Yeah, I think it has been, and why I wanted you on the podcast, not just because this is going to be an amazing recycling initiative that is going to help decrease when I found out, I did calculations. I use my allotment every month, so it was very easy. I'm a flower girl, so I can say how many I mean, I was at 1,000 eighth bottles for the year.
Yeah.
And it broke my heart to know who knows where that is.
Sure.
Like, and I live in the city, and, you know, the trash, as they're putting it in, it falls out and it goes right into the drain. And so I'm just waiting any day now to walk around the Inner Harbor and see my patient label floating around.
Sure.
Because it's so much. And so I think it's so exciting that it's coming. But what was even more interesting is over the course of the last year, watching you identify problems and then putting the effort and time and work to create a sustainable program, which, and you and I are kind of complete opposites of starting a business, right? So like you and I kind of do things, on some things, but like you did the effort to find out about a nonprofit to do where I would have just registered a company and kind of followed along the way. And I think your precision and problem solving is kind of a skill set that's missing, because I think we think things are so instant now. Like you have this and then we can fix it. And it's taking you how many months for you really to put like the bow on this, that you guys are able to out there and start talking to dispensaries about this?
What do you think? Yeah, it's been a little while. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know it was probably the second big conversation that we had with the MMCC was about this kind of thing. So probably started really diving into the understanding the problem and really researching it about 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah.
To find that there isn't an existing solution, to go through all the different options, then to define how to build a nonprofit, which was actually not that hard.
Yeah.
You know, we were already nonprofit.
Yeah.
If that makes
just
sense.
Getting the designation of it.
Yeah, we already did these things. So like as a unit, we do cleanup initiatives and all types of stuff, but it just seemed to fit. And the more it seemed to fit, the more I wanted it to, I felt that I needed to put in the right amount of work and to be as good. Because, you know, when we talk about how big that problem is, it's no longer my problem, right? It got big. So it's no longer how do we recycle. It became how does everybody recycle.
Oh, yeah.
So then it really does need to be a really sustainable program so that everybody can do it. Mm-hmm. And it's easy for people to do.
I mean, I told you this the other day when we were talking about this show. I think that the marketing of Save the Planet has been the most unfortunate marketing on the planet, because the planet will survive this, and it always has.
Sure. What
we are trying to save is the human race. We are literally the only people who will destroy themselves, all for convenience.
Yeah.
And so this is a huge deal now.
Yeah, I mean, the more we did the research and tried to understand how big of a problem this was, and where all the problems were, and you know, we thought we knew enough. We had a cursory understanding of it, but the more you dive in, the more ridiculous it seems that it's just this simple problem that we are, as a unit, as a whole person, a whole society, we don't like to see things that give us stress.
Yep, just push it away.
So
send it to China.
Right. So as you know, America specifically doesn't like to do that. So we pushed all of it over to different countries that didn't, and then we just didn't talk about it. So the national discourse wasn't about that. But if you go to certain different, beaches in Malaysia or something, you think you're on a beach. The entire beach, 20 feet deep, is, all the way out into the water, is trash.
Yeah.
And that's from us.
Yeah.
And it's just from us not knowing. What really drove me nuts about that was it was just simply because we didn't know.
Yeah.
And we were slightly misled.
Yeah.
And then we didn't do the due diligence to ask, do I need to remove this label? Which seems silly. But you see it all the time. Like when we talk to different dispensaries, they get all nervous. I got to do this, whatever their different questions are to be, and really all we're talking about is taking your trash from you.
Yeah. So people can, to put a bow on this. So if you're a dispensary or anyone that's interested in becoming a part of this, they reach out to you guys. right?
Sure. Yeah, we have.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're building the website. You know, it's everything is still being built. But yeah, they can reach out to us on Facebook or Instagram.
Yep.
Lots of dispensaries have already done that way. Or they can email us directly at the high5initiative@gmail.com.
Okay.
The 5 in there is the number 5. But that, yeah, super simple. Just give us.
And what can the community do? So, for example, what I'm going to start doing is when I go to a dispensary, where's the high 5 box that I can throw my stuff in? So we now know that there is a way that our 8th containers are going to be responsibly recycled and used again and not put into a landfill or an ocean.
Yes.
I mean, Phil, that's fucking amazing. Like, in a very big way. Yeah, you can just take it. It's amazing. You don't have to say anything about it.
I don't know that. I think it's a necessary thing. The thing that.
Well, yeah, it's still amazing, though.
All right.
It's amazing.
Whatever. It's amazing. Yeah, I think it's a necessary thing.
Yeah, I agree.
And yeah, so people, if you're a patient or a community member, the biggest thing that you can do, and if you can, you can talk to your dispensary, of course, and we certainly recommend them, and ask them if have they contacted us if they don't have a recycling thing. Other companies we're working with and trying to do recycling, but they would then take that recycling and put it in the single stream. That it defeats all the good work they're doing. So we're helping those companies as well. If you're a patient, ask them if they recycle.
Yeah.
Secondly, figure out what it is to be, what it means to recycle. Don't just, we're talking about this one industry.
Yeah.
But it can, apply it to everything. What is waste? Why is that waste? Ask that question. Is that waste? But for this specifically, go and ask your dispensary.
Yeah.
Are you guys have you talked to, the High 5 initiative yet about recycling? Because, we support that kind of thing, and we would really like a way to actually recycle.
Yeah.
And we see, that's sort of the goal, right? Is to allow the dispensaries to help move this stuff, which is the patients really are doing the work.
Yeah.
They don't want to do that. They're trying to give it back and make it not hit the landfill. How do we help them do that? If you want to do that, not put your trash in the landfill, ask your dispensaries to help.
Yeah, facilitate that for us. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it takes a very large group of individuals to solve problems like this. And so one of the things that maybe most people don't know about you, or maybe they do, is that you're also an artist as well, right?
I am.
Real Renaissance man. So my contribution to the High 5, and maybe it works and maybe it doesn't. Phil did a beautiful drawing for me. A friend of mine came up and said, if there was ever a T-shirt that would be your T-shirt, it would be a drawing of a blunt that says I'm blunt, right? And if you know me, I do love blunts a lot. And so
you do love blunts.
I do love blunts. And
You're
so
a person.
Phil last winter drew me this amazing T-shirt that you will be able to see online with pictures, and I'm wearing it now. But it is this hand-drawn blunt that says I'm blunt and it has a signature. So when Phil drew this for me, him and I had a lot of conversations because I'd never worked with an artist before. And when you have an artist design something for you, they get like a cut of that, like royalties, right? Is that the right
Generally,
word?
yeah. They own the
part
art,
of that. Yeah.
And it depends on how you work it out. But it's basically royalties, yeah.
But I basically said, well, this is just for me, and I'm
did.
never going to sell it. Like, I don't want anyone ever to have this. Like, this was for me. However.
You did. You only, yes.
Yeah, I'm selfish like that.
You were like, I want all of it.
Yeah, and I have bags
give me the
and
patent,
all
give
things.
Give me this, give me that.
With this one logo on it. And nobody else has this.
This is true.
So what I'm going to do is you have a threadless store.
We do.
That is We Rise from the Ashes.
Correct.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And you, for a limited amount of time, and probably I don't know what that is, so I'm not going to say anything about it, you can buy this design. And 100% of any money that it didn't cost to make anything goes to the High 5 initiative, because recycling is not free.
Oh no, this
right?
is there's a nonprofit for a reason. There's no money in this. And
nope.
Yeah, it's tough. There's any amount of support that anybody could possibly give is really, really helpful for us.
Yep.
It makes it a lot easier. it just really helps.
Yeah,
So that's beautiful.
You can go on Threadless, look for the artist store We Rise from the Ashes, and we'll have all of this noted. And you can purchase I'm Blunt. You can get cups. I got a bag, a T-shirt, anything you would like to put.
There's a lot of different things.
Yeah, and other designs by you as well up there. So I hope you enjoy it and have my T-shirt, and that it does some good with recycling. Because here's what I know. It hit me very hard when I'm a marketer at heart, and that's why you and I always have great discussions, because I am the antithesis of I fuck things up with my marketing all the time.
Yes.
However, when I realized
I do.
And
we fix it.
And you fix it.
Sometimes.
Yeah. I realized how bad it really was. And you can, I know there are people who don't agree with this and they think this is all fake. But when you have fish
it's crazy.
that have plastic in it, when you're being told not to eat things because of the waste, we have a bigger problem.
Sure.
And this is not just a few years or millions of years away. It's just decades away.
Yes.
That we need to get our shit together.
That's 100% true, yes.
Correct. I am so thankful that you guys are on this, and Bree, that you're on this as well. Like, this is huge to have seen a problem, and this is big, and it's been on Facebook. Watch the Trevor Noah thing. Google it to see how big of a deal it is, and to know that you guys, just because you ask a simple question, do I need to take the label off? You now, in time, will save 84,000 pounds, and then some, and then and again and again. So I'm so thankful that you took the time to think about that problem.
Yeah, thank you. It's just been really impressive to see not just the support, but the amount of impact, that you can make as a group, as a unit, how much you can actually do together. And we're just really thankful that that we can actually help with this particular solution. So I'm really happy about it.
Well, thank you.
Thanks.
And thanks for being on, and we'll have you on again, and we'll do some follow-up videos as this gets released. But like I said, if you're interested, just reach out to them on Facebook.
Yes.
On Gmail, we'll make sure it's all in the show notes so you can get in touch with them. Thanks again, and thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Conversations with Maryjane.
Can we smoke a blunt now?
Yes, we can.